Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. This week I want to focus on post-rotation. We have had a weekend worth of paper tournaments, the big one being Baltimore, Star City Games Open Baltimore, that Bant Company took it down, and I just want to talk about that briefly, and I still want to really focus on that Shadows of Innistrad has the surface has just been scratched with what Shadows of Innistrad has to offer. So I think there is some room to grow in various archetypes like vampires, zombies, even werewolves, humans. And I think that Baltimore was just basically, you see this every rotation, is people like to keep it familiar. Bant Company existed, so did this white-black mid-range. Both of these kind of archetypes existed before rotation, and they were just kind of the safe route, the familiar route to take to a tournament. I think that the big brewing happens later on after these major tournaments. The dust has kind of settled. We'll start to see people get out of their familiar shells and start brewing, start trying to attack these decks with the new cards out of Shadows over Innistrad. So basically, this is an opportune time to sell. I like post-rotation as a time to sell off all of your next rotating cards. So that's going to be Dragons of Tarkir and Magic Origins. Both of those cards have recently, a bunch of them have spiked. A bunch of them have unjustifiably spiked. What I mean by that is they have yet to prove themselves. So I'm going to talk about those particular cards. We're going to kind of take a look at these decks, these kind of the big four decks, the big five decks that were very, very prevalent at the Baltimore Open, and then talk about some cards that I think you should get out of right now, and possibly some cards that I still think have room to grow. Now, let's just start off with Magic Origins. Magic Origins is a set that is worth almost $300, so the estimated value of a booster box is starting to actually outstretch or just be above the MSRP, or not the MSRP, but the vendor price. So every time we see like the estimated value of the Magic Origins go above 80, 85 bucks, that means it starts to become profitable for the vendors to open packs and sell off the singles. So I think that there is no room to grow in Origins. We have a bunch of cards, a bunch of rares, a bunch of mythics that are above the $5, and then we have a bunch of mythics that are above $15, and rares that are starting to really push the $5 envelope. And at that point, that's when the vendors will start opening packs. And I really think this is a bad idea to invest in anything Origins or Dragons. Usually right after the Pro Tour, before a set rotates, is when they're going to be at their highest. So we have cards that have been spiking recently. Well, the first one I want to talk about is Archangel of Tithes. Archangel of Tithes, I think, is a sell, sell, sell. This is an unproven card that is basically just speculation. Now, a bunch of people have invested in Archangel of Tithes after there have been some articles written about how Archangel of Tithes dodges almost all the premier removal spells. It dodges Languish, it dodges Grasp of Darkness, it dodges Silk Wrap, it dodges the Wasteland Strangler, and then, so people think that it is a 4-drop for a 3/5 that makes it tough to either attack or block, has some relevance in the format. Now, it didn't see much play in the last set, but people are, I think, anticipating that we're going to go back to 2-color decks, and Archangel of Tithes is a lot easier to cast in a 2-color than it is in a 4-color deck. But I think it still has yet to prove itself. Baltimore, it didn't see that many copies. There's a few sideboard here, a few here and there. I think that a lot of people were really playing Avacyn over Archangel of Tithes. They're very similar in their bodies, what they try to do in this like mid-range strat. I think that a lot of people are using Archangel of Tithes as a curve topper in like the mono-white human aggro or white-blue human aggro. But again, it's just something that is unproven. So a $22 unproven mythic is something I highly suggest you get out of. This card, I think its ceiling is about $30. Again, this is where a Jace exists at $87 right now, $86.50. I don't think this set has a lot of room to grow. Something has to give, and we've seen a lot of other cards start to go up in value. We could see another price spike in Hangerback Walker. It did tend to seem that Hangerback Walker had a nice showing at Baltimore, and still seems to be a very powerful card. I think Hangerback Walker actually got a lot weaker with the Exile theme from what White and Black has from Shadows over Innistrad. So the poor Walker, the poor robot, is going to be exiled more than destroyed, and is going to suffer from that. But we've also seen cards like Pyromancer's Goggles. That is all pure speculation that this card has just gone up in value. I think this is another card that you need to get rid of, as well as Kytheon, Hero of Akros. But this card did see a lot of play at Baltimore. I still want to focus on that people kept it safe. I think that the format is going to adjust to these hyper-aggressive collected company decks or just white human decks, and we're going to see a lot more languishes, a lot more Virulent Plagues. I think Virulent Plague is a very, very powerful card right now in the metagame. It shuts down Gideon. It also shuts down Secure the Waste, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then once these like hyper-aggressive strategies go away, we're going to go back to... People tend to forget that Dragonlord Ojutai still exists, or these really, really heavy control-based cards that can get out of hand very quickly. And I think that once the dust settles and people start to toy with a lot of the cards from Shadows of Innistrad, we're going to see a lot different format. I mean, a collected company, aggro, tempo-based strategies seem to dominate Baltimore. So that was a no-brainer. Like I said before, those decks existed before rotation and did quite well, and we saw them post-rotation when people were just taking the safe route. So Jace is still heavily, heavily overpriced. It has something from this set has to give. I think Pinecron Alar is going to see a lot more play. Another reason why I think Virulent Plague is still a very, very good card in the metagame. And we've seen some of these other cards start to go up, like Knight of the White Orchard. Avaricious Dragon is still unproven. A lot of these unproven cards, right now is the best time to get out of Origins, or give yourself a week after the Pro Tour and then start to unload. Historically, that's when you'll start to see cards hit their peak, their most ever, because a card is going to be either its most ever right upon release, or shortly after the release of a set, or shortly after the rotation. And a card that didn't see any play post-rotation. Think of Olivia back in during Innistrad. It didn't see any play during the Scars of Mirrodin Innistrad, and then after rotation during Ravnica Innistrad, it was a very heavily played card and went from like a $4 mythic all the way up to I think it went up to like $30. So we've seen those type of cards in the past, and so there will be that window of opportunity for the cards that didn't see much play that now are like powerhouses, which I think is what people initially thought Archangel of Tithes. They're trying to get ahead of the Archangel of Tithes, but so far this card is unproven. So Origins, there's a ton of cards I think you should unload. There still could be some like diamonds in the rough that will start to go up in value, but I just am a huge fan of starting to unload all of your Origins and Dragon's Dark here. Speaking of dragons, this set has highly outstretched its, I think the MSRP for this, or not MSRP, the estimated value of a booster box of Dragon's Tarkir is well above 80 now with the price increase of some of these cards. And so that means that vendors will start to open to get the singles. There's cards like Kolaghan's Command. Kolaghan's Command, I think, is a little bit high right now. It's very, very good in Modern. It's still pretty good in Standard. But Abrupt Decay is a really good example of a card that, after rotation, that still sees a ton of play in Modern. What happens to it? Abrupt Decay is sitting around like, what, $13, $11, $12, $13, and it went all the way down to $7 after it rotated. And people like really, really stockpiled Abrupt Decays and Shocklands for anticipation of them being Modern staples, which they still are. But Modern doesn't have the demand that both Standard and Modern has. You're cutting it in half right there. It's losing one of its format potentials. And that's why I'm not a big fan of Kolaghan's Command long term, and the fetch lands especially, because I just don't think that Modern has the demand that Standard has, or both of them combined. I do like Kolaghan's Command, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I actually like Kolaghan's Command because I think it's going to be a powerhouse in Modern with the new Ancestral Visions. It's going to be a way for black decks to kind of combat the card advantage that Ancestral Visions and like the Thopters start to get. Kolaghan's Command can actually deal with either of the pieces of the Thopter, as well as get some more advantage out of getting back a Dark Confidant in your graveyard or killing another creature of theirs. So this is a very powerful card. I think it's the most powerful card out of Dragon's Dark here. Maybe Collected Companies right on power level, but Standard, I don't know if it's going to be able to hold its price tag at $20. Something has to give out of this Dragon set. Dragonlord Ojutai, speaking of what I talked about earlier, could go up in price. This card is a very, very good card in the control shell. This is a finisher. This is all blue-white needs to finish the game. It's a few Dragonlord Ojutais. We still have a lot of the dragon cards that enable Dragonlord Ojutai in the past. The Counterspell for dragons, the sacrifice a creature and gain life. If you reveal a dragon, a lot of those cards still exist in either an Esper. I think that going into Jeskai is still a smart choice. All that shell, that archetype still exists. Control is not dead. We got a lot of cards out of Shadows of Innistrad that I think really enable control. And if any card, I really like Dragonlord Ojutai as like the breakout mythic. They could go up from $14 to $30, but if that happens, then again, these rares, something out of these rares has to give. I think that right now, red-green has not really been... Like Landfall, which is what this deck card went in, is pretty much dead without the fetch lands. And a lot of the premier tokens that went really well with Atarka's Command, like the Horthing Outburst, also rotated. So I think if any card has the most potential to see a loss, it's Atarka's Command. This is a card that I do like long-term because of the Naya burn in Modern. So this card is going to probably hold its price rather than decrease in price. I guess you could say the same thing for Kolaghan's Command and Collected Company because of their Modern playability. But I think this the safe route. You know, the cards that flatline are not cards I like to hold on to either. I think that if you can sell a card when it's flatline, meaning it's not decreasing or increasing in price, and then invest in a card that is going to go up in value, is a lot smarter investment than just, stubbornly sticking onto a card that is flatlined. Yes, Atarka's Command will probably be an expensive card in 3 to 4 years. Same with Kolaghan's Command. A lot of these, once new players in 3 to 4 years start getting into Modern, and then they don't have Atarka's Commands and Kolaghan's Command, they start investing in it, and Dragon's Tarkir is, long gone. No one's buying packs anymore of it. Then the price increase of these can start to go crazy. But we haven't seen a lot of movement since Magic has started printing a lot more sets, or a lot more boxes. Ever since Ravnica, they've been overprinting sets. You can still find Ravnica boxes for $95, or even if you're a really savvy shopper, I'm sure you can still find Ravnica boxes for even MSRP, or not MSRP, vendor prices like $80. I can still get, from my vendors, I can still get Return to Ravnica. They still have plenty of them in stock, and they still do sell them that's slightly above the vendor price. And I think that's what's been really suffering with the Shocklands and staples like Abrupt Decay, is just the overprinting of those sets. Theros still exists. All of the sets right from Return to Ravnica up to this set are still heavily printed. We had a lot of influx of players between Innistrad and Return to Ravnica, and the steady growth of Magic has increased pretty consistently year to year, but there's still plenty of product out there from those sets. So I don't think that we're going to see these huge price increases like we saw from all of the Modern sets before Return to Ravnica. Anyway, let's just talk about some of these other cards. There's still room to grow for Den Protector. I still like this card a lot, as it works perfectly in the Collected Company human type shells. If you get a late game Den Protector, you can easily Megamorph it just for 5 mana to get back a Collected Company. It actually curves perfectly with Collected Company. Use a Collected Company, and then next turn Megamorph, morph down and Megamorph a Den Protector to get back a Collected Company. Just value City. So there's still some very powerful cards. Thunderbreak Regent could spike in the right deck, even though it was a promo and in a intro pack, not intro pack, in an event deck, right? I believe it was, so that's what's holding this card back, is just the sheer amount of Thunderbreak Regents. We could see a Dragonlord Kolaghan deck come back. It works very well in that kind of black-red mid-range aggro type strategy. I really like Olivia and the Vampire Tribal out of Shadows over Innistrad. Jamoka's Command is very low right now, which I think is a great pickup long-term. This card does see Modern play, and it saw a ton of play in the white and green shells, so either Bant or Naya or just white-green mid-range. Jamoka's Command is still a Silk Wrap killer. It still kills. It could kill a Virulent Plague if that card ever gets big. There's still some enchantments here and there, like Stasis Stare and the big one. What's the one that exiles multiple permanents out of battle for Zendikar that it can kill. The fight is still very relevant with Deathmist Raptor. The +1/+1 counter and fight is also still very relevant. And preventing all damage from instant sorcery spell is probably going to be more relevant. There was some great cards out of Shadows of Innistrad that dealt damage, so this is a perfect counter to that. So we also have cards like Risen Executioner that can still go up if it's Zombie Tribal. This works perfectly because it's another card you can self-mill and cast from your graveyard. Works pretty well with the new 2/2 zombie, the Reckless Dead. Is that what it's called? And also the prized amalgam? Is that what it's called? Anyway, I need to get better with these terminology of these cards. So what I'm trying to say is, I just say go the safe route. Wait for the Pro Tour and then unload the Dragons of Tarkir and Origins cards. They will be at their all-time high. This Magic is a very, very consistent market. We have very consistent things, almost like the regular market does with like Christmas time. You know that around Christmas time, price will increase of certain commodities like electronics and things like that will start to go up because people will buy them. It's the same thing in Magic. Right now, people are needing to pick up a bunch of cards for the Pro Tour. These cards are gonna spike like crazy. A lot of these Pro Tour teams, they buy like 4 of every copy of every card, multiple copies of every card, and play like every combination of cards imaginable, and just playtest. And then afterwards, after the Pro Tour is done, they sell them off. And that has a huge impact in the market. Also has a huge impact in the market when the first Friday Night Magics happen. And people will start to see, oh, this deck beats me. I want to pick it up. So they start picking up copies. This buying trend will cease after the initial buying spree, and then people will start to be prepared for rotation. Rotation comes quicker than it normally does. Dragon Star Kier and Origins do not have that long of left. They have the summer, and then after the summer, they are gone. We have an Eternal Masters set that is coming out. We have a Conspiracy set that is coming out. We have another From the Vault set that is coming out that is going to put pressure. I mean, people only have a finite amount of money that they're able to spend, and it's going to take away some of that purchasing that would have been used towards standard decks, towards these more eternal sets. So I think that this is a great opportunity to sell off these overpriced cards, especially cards that haven't proven themselves, and at least get your money out of them before they start to fall, because these sets do not have anywhere to go but down. They're above. I want to just really beat this home. They are above their estimated value. Anytime a set does this, people like me that have access to vendor prices will just start to open booster boxes. Now, I'm not going to talk about, we'll save Shadows over Innistrad for another video. Maybe I'll just make a companion video to this, what cards I think have a lot of room to grow out of Shadows of Innistrad. But please, 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 take a good look at your collection. This is the rule of thumb I go by. Is this necessary to a deck I will be playing in the next month? Because in a month, you can start picking up these cards for cheaper than they are now. So do I need this? I'm going to build one standard deck. One standard deck. I'm probably going to build white-black mid-range. Some sort of white-black Eldrazi is what I really like right now as far as sheer power level. I think Thought-Knot Seer is still incredibly powerful. I think Languish is still incredibly powerful. And I'm gonna focus on that deck. And then anything that does not fit that archetype, I'm selling off. And in a month, after I play to death that black-white and I start to adjust to some Shadows of Innistrad brew or whatnot, I'll start to pick up the pieces I need for 25% less, 35% less, and make back what I traded, and then have that excess money to start to investing in Shadows of Innistrad cards that are going to hit their bottom after heavy drafting occurs. So that's where I like to shift my money. Shift my money over from Dragons of Tarkir and Origins into underpriced, very underpriced, either Oath of the Gatewatch and Battle for Zendikar that have just been heavily, heavily drafted, or Shadows of Innistrad that is going to be drafted into Oblivion, and those prices will completely bottom out. I still like the lands out of Shadows of Innistrad. What are they calling these lands? The Reveal lands? I think the Reveal lands are, in my opinion, the third best lands ever printed for the modern format. Of course, Fetches and Shocks are above them. I think these are the third best ones, as revealing a basic land is not very hard. And in fact, it actually makes a lot of modern decks not really even need fetch lands now, because you can just, if you're in a 2-color deck, you can run 4 Shocks and 4 of these, and maybe even 4 of the battle lands, and you can be quite confident that your lands are going to come into play untapped. Anyway, I think I've rambled for almost 20 minutes with this market. I know I've been all over the place, but I just wanted to take this time to really educate people about rotation. Get out of Dragons of Tarkir, get out of Origins. You'll thank yourself later. You can wait a week for after Pro Tour. Once those cards spike, unload. Invest in Shadows of Innistrad. This is Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.